What's up, guys? How's it going? Today we're going to be talking about this keyboard right here, this Steelseries keyboard, the Apex M750 TKL. And this keyboard's kind of old. I think they're actually discounting it from its original price on the website because it's an older keyboard, but it still holds up very well, and I definitely recommend it. But let's get into it. So the first thing about this keyboard is the fact that it's 10 keyless, and 10 keyless means that it doesn't have number keys over here. Normally most keyboards would have like number keys so you can do math functions and other stuff like that, but that's not really necessary in the sense that you won't need that if you're gaming and stuff like that, because you're not going to be doing very many math calculations with that kind of keyboard. So it's good to have because you can have more mouse space and more desk space in general, especially since my desk right here is very small, so it's useful in that sense. The next thing we're going to talk about is the usability. So just the overall daily usability of this keyboard, how it holds up to daily tasks. Because I obviously don't just use this computer for gaming. I do other stuff on it, like a ton of other stuff on it, such as editing these videos, for example. So how does it hold up to that? And it's a pretty nice keyboard. One thing I didn't love about it is that many keyboards today, these higher end keyboards, come out or have like armrests with them, and usually they're not the nicest, but they're magnetic. And this one didn't, which was a little disappointing because I wish I had that. And I have this one right here. It's the glorious PC Gaming Race mousepad, or sorry, not mousepad, armrest, and it does the job very well. It's probably better than one that would come with the keyboard, but I still do wish it did have that just because it'd be nicer, and I'm sure it wouldn't be too bad either. So that would have been nice to have, but otherwise it's a pretty usable keyboard, and because of its small size you can fit it on almost any desks too. So if you have to have this for other tasks too, as well as gaming, then it's definitely a good keyboard in that sense. So I'd recommend it if you needed to do other tasks too. In terms of the RGB and the overall functionality of that, this keyboard can do a lot of different things. So you have like Discord integration, for example, which has certain lights that'll light up, and it like has a different configuration based off what you want it to. So let's say if somebody's calling you or you get a notification or somebody left your voice chat, it'll let you know in all those different respects, which is really cool. I don't use it personally because I feel that it's kind of distracting and it's not really necessary for my use, because I just usually use the on-screen notifications, or usually no notifications at all. But I can see how it could be very useful if you didn't want to, especially if you were like me and you had only one monitor versus two, and you needed kind of a pseudo second monitor. You could use this keyboard in that sense. So that's a pretty good use of it. But the most important thing about this keyboard to know if you're going to get this keyboard is the switches. And if you don't know too much about keyboards, the switches are the clickiness, basically. And if you don't know too much about switches, the switches are what allow the keyboard to move up and down, click, if you will. And if you don't know too much about switches, the switches are what allow the keyboard to actuate, like this. So there's all kinds of different So if you don't know what keyboard switches are, they're basically what allow the keyboard to actuate. So like, for example, this keyboard has linear switches, but there's so many different kinds of switches. The most popular are the Cherry brand switches, and that's usually what most people go off. Steelseries and I think Razer too, and some other brands have their own switches. I know Corsair uses Cherry switches, but switches can change how the keyboard feels. So this keyboard has linear switches. It's Steelseries Q, X2, their own linear switch. Basically what that means is that it has a linear feel. So instead of it being clicky or audibly clicky too, like many keyboards are. This keyboard is very smooth, and the only sound that you hear is from the keycap hitting the bottom of the switch. So that's very important to consider because it can really change how the keyboard feels, how it sounds, etc. So when I first bought this keyboard, I didn't exactly know that, so that's why it's very important. And to be honest, I kind of did want a keyboard that had more clickable switches in a sense. But I was fine with it. I got used to it, and they do feel pretty nice. It's a lot easier to click in a sense because there's nothing really preventing you. But that's just something important to know when you're buying this keyboard versus other keyboards that might have clickier switches and stuff like that. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the quality of this keyboard. And this keyboard is pretty well made. It's very sturdy, and it's made out of, they say, aerospace grade aluminum, I believe, which is kind of a gimmick, but it is very sturdy. It doesn't flex, and you don't want a keyboard to flex, especially one that you're using the game. It has these, it's plastic for the most part, but on the, like, this core area is metal, and so that's what keeps it sturdy as it is. And the plastic is pretty nice too. So also on the bottom there's two little rubber things. They're interchangeable, so when you get the keyboard you have two different options of heights. I keep mine at the higher height, but you can change it, so that's one thing to know. So now we're going to get into the price and the value, and if you should buy this keyboard. So this keyboard is priced at around $100 currently. It was at first $120 when I bought it, and so they've lowered the price a little bit because it's an older keyboard and whatnot. It can be high for many people. My old keyboard was a Logitech membrane keyboard, and that was much cheaper. So I could see how this one, I mean, I'd say though, considering that's only $100, which is decently expensive for a keyboard, you get a lot, especially since this is an older one. If you wanted to save like $20 or so, maybe $40. So on this channel we do buy, consider, or avoid. That's like a yes, maybe, or no in terms of if you should get it or not. And for this keyboard, I'm gonna go ahead and say you should definitely buy it, unless you really wanted to get a cheaper keyboard. If you're looking at a decent keyboard that's going to last you a very long time, this has a lot of value proposition, especially with the RGB controls too and stuff like that. So yeah, I would say buy it.